Okay, how much time have I got? Not that long, right? I want to talk about a couple of hashtags. Wrong skin. Hashtags. I love that word. Hashtag. I could say that all day. Wrong skin and trans black. And it's both the kind of the second one is a subset of the first, which is this idea that you're trapped in the wrong racial identity, I suppose, such that you might be, you might regard yourself, you feel as if you're a black person, but you're trapped in white skin. And it chimes into this idea, I think, that race is a social construct, and it's a kind of, perhaps a parody on the idea that of transgenderism and gender being a social construct. Now, this comes from this Twitter account, Godfrey Elfwick, which I would advise, well, let me first say, if you're the kind of person that's really easily offended, just don't bother with any of that. In fact, just go out, get under the bed sheets probably. But if you're just a little bit offended by things, it's a really, really good account. And I have that I've got one of those kind of Dr. Pepper moments. What's the worst that can fucking happen, right? Even if you do get a little bit offended, you'll probably find that you get up in the morning, the sun will still rise and the world will still carry on. And it's one of those accounts which I sometimes find it a little oversteps the mark a bit and a little bit offensive, but it makes you think about things. And this is one of these examples. And the Godfrey Elfwick example of being wrong skin we're understanding that as a parody, but what about if it wasn't? What about if you genuinely felt like that? That's what's got me thinking with regard to that. If you genuinely was of one racial identity or would be regarded of one racial identity, but you feel as if you're somebody from another racial identity trapped within it. And if we're saying that race is a social construct, how does that differ from the idea of gender? When we're saying that gender is a social construct, as apart from having physically black skin or being physically descended from certain ethnic groups, sub-Saharan African groups, which we would regard in a certain way as generally porting across to being black, the same thing as being male or female, as opposed to being a man or a woman. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. And I don't want anybody to be offended by anything that I say, and I'm sure some people will be. But what I want to do is I just want to lay out how I feel about these things, really. And nothing I say is hard and fast here, right? Both in terms, I'm not suggesting anything I say is factual and can't be challenged. And I'm also not saying that my views are necessarily set in stone here. But this is how I kind of view it then. So we're saying, everybody says that gender is a social construct. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have some links, surely, to biology, to biological sex. I mean, I'm sure when the terms male and female come up, the idea was that they would port across to male and female. If you're male, you're a man. If you're female, you're a woman. And we accept, most of us go beyond that now. And why wouldn't we? I think it's kind of mean-spirited not to. If somebody is, if a male-bodied person feels like a woman, right? They feel like that is what they associate with. That is what they feel about themselves. Why would you want them? Why would you force them into living a life where they're comfy in their own skin, in their own existence, when they could be so much happier with their own existence, right? Why would you do that? I wouldn't do that. So for me, I don't even need to look at that any deeper than that as a general rule. I'll just accept people can identify as they like, and I'm happy with that. And I will absolutely go along with that and make them feel as comfy as possible. Why wouldn't I? It'd be kind of mean-spirited not to. But the idea that gender is a social construct surely has limits, because it still has ties to these things, right? We're just saying those ties aren't hard and fast 100% of the time. But still having a set of bollocks, a set of testes, XY chromosomes, having the smaller gametes generally ports across to being a man. And similarly, you can make the case with female to woman. And we accept that, right? So accept that there is some grounding there, but it's not exclusive. So why can't the same be true with regards to this black thing? I mean, trans black, which is, I'm anticipating the objection to trans black is, well, no, you've got to have black skin to be black, right? If you've got white skin, then you're not black. But if race, black skin is a physiological characteristic with an ethnic that ties into an ethnic heritage that you've got. Okay, and we all understand that. But does it have to be a hard and fast rule? If it doesn't have to with regard to gender, and if we regard race, unlike ethnicity, as a social construct, then what is the problem that we have with any of this? if somebody genuinely feels like a black person trapped in a white body, what would be our objection to them identifying as being black? That's the kind of question that I have. And I suppose I'd be interested in what everybody thinks about that. You can probably tell from what I'm saying, and I'll nail my flag to the mast now, that I can't see how I could adopt one set of rules for transgender and another set of rules for this kind of wrong skin, trans black kind of thing, because they both seem to be the same things. We're talking about things which we regard as social constructs, but which do have hooks, which to some extent link into physiological things and phenotypic and genotypic things, perhaps, but it's not hard and fast. It seems to be the same in either case. So what I'm asking people, especially for people who are black themselves, right, is, do you find it offensive? Would you find it offensive if somebody, forget about Godfrey Elfwick, somebody who was genuinely regarded themselves as black, but you wouldn't, because their history, all their parentage was non-black, and they had very, very light coloured skin? Would you find that objectionable in the same way perhaps as TERFs and other people regard it? They have that same kind of objection, don't they, to trans women, for example. Would you have the same kind of objection? And if you do, and I'm anticipating most people who would watch this won't have that objection to trans men and trans women, what is the difference? What is the grounding upon which you say, no, that one's okay, I accept that if you feel like a woman but you're male, then that's fine, you should be able to identify as a woman, but if you are ethnically Northern European, but you identify as black, no, it's not acceptable. You have to have black skin. You have to be sub-Saharan African ethnicity to identify as black. That's what I'm interested in. I think I've told you where I'm at with that. Be interested to know what anybody else thinks. Thank you for watching, and I better get on with the housework now.